Everyone's telling you to wait. Rates are too high, prices are too high, the market's going to crash, just rent for now, wait until things calm down. And honestly, that advice sounds smart. It feels responsible. So you wait another month of not overpaying, another month of being patient, another month of rent. But here's the part nobody explains. Waiting isn't neutral. Even while you wait, the math is still moving, money is still flowing, equity is still being built, just not by you. I call this the waiting tax. And over a lifetime, it costs the average renter over $400,000. Not in fees, not in bills, in wealth that should exist, but doesn't. That's what this video is about. The real cost of waiting to buy a home. A cost most people never calculate because it doesn't show up as a bill. My name is Mark. Stay with me. Because once you see this math, you can't unsee it. Here's what we've all been told. Don't rush into buying, be patient, save more, wait for rates to come down, wait for the market to correct, wait until you're ready. This advice comes from everywhere. Parents, financial influencers, articles with titles like Why Millennials Are Smart to Keep Renting. And it feels true. It feels safe because right now in this market, buying feels insane. Mortgage rates above 6%, home prices near all-time highs, bidding wars in some cities, a down payment that looks more like a small inheritance than a savings goal. Renting feels like the rational choice, the responsible choice. And for some people, in some situations, for some period of time, it might be. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. There's a difference between strategic renting and permanent waiting. Strategic renting is a short-term decision with a deadline. You rent for 2 years while you build a down payment. You rent while you figure out where you want to live. You rent because you know you're moving soon. Permanent waiting is different. Permanent waiting is renting with no exit plan. It's telling yourself you'll buy eventually without ever defining what eventually means. It's checking rates every month, hoping they'll drop to 5%, then 4, then 3, and never pulling the trigger. Permanent waiting isn't patience, it's paralysis disguised as responsibility. And it comes with a price tag nobody shows you. Let me introduce you to two people, James and Maya, same age, 32, same city, same income, about $85,000 a year. Same monthly budget for housing, $2,000. In 2021, they both faced the same decision. James decided to buy. He found a small house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, needed some work. Purchase price, $320,000. His interest rate, 6.2%. Not great, he knew that. His monthly payment with taxes and insurance, about $2,100, a little over his target, but he made it work. Maya decided to wait. Rates were too high, she said. Prices were inflated. The market was going to crash. Everyone said so she kept renting. A nice apartment, $1,800 a month. She'd buy when things calmed down. That was 5 years ago. Well, let's see where they are today. James, the guy who bought at a bad time with a high rate, his house is now worth $415,000. He's gained $95,000 in appreciation alone. His mortgage balance has dropped from $304,000 to $271,000. That's $33,000 in principal paydown. Equity he owns. Total equity position, $144,000. His payment, still $2,100, hasn't changed, won't change. And here's the kicker. Last year, rates dipped briefly. He refinanced to 5.4%. His payment dropped to $1,900. He's paying less now than when he bought. And he owns $144,000 in wealth that didn't exist 5 years ago. Now let's look at Maya. She's been renting for 5 years, waiting for the right moment. Her rent started at $1,800. But rent increases happen. Every year her landlord bumped it. Year 1, $1,800. Year 2, $1,850. Year 3, $1,925. Year 4, $2,000. Year 5, $2,100. Her rent is now higher than James's mortgage payment, and she owns nothing. Let's add up what Maya paid over 5 years. Total rent, approximately $118,000. Equity gained, 0. Wealth built, 0. She didn't save money by waiting. She transferred it. Every single month, her rent check paid down her landlord's mortgage. Built her landlord's equity, funded her landlord's retirement. She thought she was being smart. She was paying the waiting tax. But here's where it gets worse. Maya is now ready to buy. She's saved up a down payment. She's pre-approved. But the house that cost $320,000 in 2021, it's now $415,000. The down payment she needs is $30,000 higher. The mortgage she'll take on is larger. And the interest rate? still above 6%. She waited 5 years for better conditions. Conditions got worse. And even if rates drop to 5% next year, she's still buying a more expensive house with a bigger loan. The math doesn't care about her patience. The math only cares about time. This is the moving target. While you wait and save, prices move. Sometimes down, yes, but historically, up. The average home appreciates 3 to 4% per year. That means every year you wait, you need to save an extra $10,000 to $15,000 just to stay in the same position. You're not getting closer to ownership. You're running on a treadmill that speeds up every year. And meanwhile, your rent keeps rising too. Maya's $1,800 became $2,100. That's $300 extra a month she's paying, money that could have gone toward a mortgage. The waiting tax isn't just the equity you don't build. It's the rent increases you absorb. It's the appreciation you miss. It's the principal paydown that happens for someone else. It's the refinance opportunity you can't access because you don't own anything. It compounds every single year. And after a decade of waiting, the gap between you and someone who bought becomes almost impossible to close. Let me show you what 10 years of waiting really costs. Same scenario, $2,000 a month housing budget. Person A buys in year 1, $320,000 house, 6.2% rate. Person B rents for 10 years, waiting for the perfect moment. After 10 years, person A has a home worth approximately $500,000, assuming modest appreciation. Their remaining mortgage balance is around $230,000. Total equity, $270,000. Person B has paid approximately $240,000 in rent over 10 years, assuming modest annual increases. Total equity, zero. The wealth gap between them is $270,000. But that's not the full picture, because person B still needs to buy eventually. And now they're buying a $500,000 house instead of a $320,000 house. They need a bigger down payment, a bigger loan, bigger monthly payments. They didn't save money by waiting, they made everything more expensive. This is what nobody calculates. The cost of waiting isn't just the rent you pay, it's the future purchase price you lock in by delaying. Every year you wait, your future mortgage gets larger. Every year you wait, your future down payment requirement grows. Every year you wait, the gap between renter and owner widens. And the worst part? You feel like you're being responsible, you feel like you're making the smart choice, but the math is quietly destroying your financial future while you wait for permission to act. Here's the thing about waiting for perfect conditions. Perfect conditions don't exist. In 2019, people said prices were too high. In 2020, people said the pandemic would crash the market. In 2021, people said it was a bubble. In 2022, people said rates were rising too fast. In 2023, people said wait for rates to drop. In 2024, people said wait for the election. In 2025, people said wait for the market to stabilize. Now it's 2026, and people are still saying wait. At what point does waiting become the mistake? The answer is it already has. Every year you've waited, you've paid the waiting tax, and the receipt is the wealth you don't have. But here's what makes this really painful. It's not your fault. The entire financial media ecosystem profits from your uncertainty. Headlines that say, housing crash coming, get more clicks than buy now and build equity. Financial influencers who tell you to wait and see sound smarter than those who tell you to take action. Caution is rewarded with likes and shares. Action is criticized as reckless. So you wait, because waiting feels like the sophisticated choice. But waiting isn't neutral. Waiting has a cost, and that cost is the waiting tax. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what if I buy and the market crashes? What if prices drop 20%? Then I'm the sucker. That's a fair question, and I'm going to answer it because the fear of buying at the wrong time is exactly what keeps people trapped in permanent waiting. And the math might surprise you. That's what we're going to break down next. So let's address the fear. What if you buy and the market crashes? What if prices drop 20% the year after you purchase? What if you become the cautionary tale everyone warned you about? This fear is real, and it's valid, because it has happened before. The housing crisis. People lost their homes, lost their savings, lost everything. Nobody wants to be that person. So let me show you exactly what happens if you buy at the worst possible time. Let's say you bought in 2006, the peak, the absolute top of the market before the crash. You paid $350,000 for a house that dropped to $220,000 by 2009. You lost $130,000 in value on paper. Devastating, right? But here's what actually happened to people who bought at the peak and stayed. By 2015, that house was worth $360,000, back to even. By 2020, it was worth $450,000. By 2025, it was worth $540,000. The person who bought at the literal worst time in modern history, they have $190,000 in equity today. And their mortgage payment? Locked, never changed, while rents doubled around them. They survived the worst crash in a century, and they're still ahead of every renter who waited. Here's the secret nobody tells you. Time in the market beats timing the market. Not just for stocks, for real estate too. Because real estate isn't a speculation. It's a place you live. You don't lose money when your home value drops unless you sell. If you stay, you keep paying down the mortgage. Keep building equity. Keep waiting for the market to recover. And markets always recover. Every single time in American history, the people who got destroyed in 2008 weren't the ones who bought at the peak. They were the ones who bought with bad loans they couldn't afford and were forced to sell at the bottom. If you buy within your means with a fixed-rate mortgage and a payment you can sustain, crashes don't destroy you. They're just turbulence. But here's what's wild. While you wait for a crash that may or may not come, the guaranteed cost keeps piling up. Let me introduce a concept I call the certainty gap. When you wait, you're betting on an uncertain future. Maybe prices drop, maybe rates drop, maybe conditions improve. But while you bet on maybes, the certain costs keep hitting you. Certain cost, your rent is due every month, that's not a maybe. Certain cost, your rent will increase, average 3 to 5% per year, that's not a maybe. Certain cost, your landlord's equity is growing from your payments, that's not a maybe. Certain cost, you're building zero wealth from your housing payment, that's not a maybe. The certainty gap is the difference between the guaranteed losses you're taking while waiting versus the uncertain losses you're trying to avoid by not buying. And when you do the math honestly, the certain losses almost always outweigh the uncertain ones. Let's run the numbers. You wait 5 years for a 20% price drop. During those 5 years, you pay $120,000 in rent. Then prices drop 20%. Congratulations. You saved $60,000 on the purchase price. But you spent $120,000 in rent to save $60,000. You're still down $60,000. And that's the best case scenario, a crash that may never come. If prices stay flat, you lose $120,000 and gain nothing. If prices rise even modestly, you lose $120,000 plus, you pay more for the house. The math doesn't favor waiting. It never has. This is the certainty gap, and it's why wait and see is almost always the wrong advice. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I literally cannot afford to buy right now. And I hear you, I do. Down payments are massive, closing costs are brutal, prices in some cities are genuinely insane. I'm not going to tell you to buy a house you can't afford. That's 2008 thinking. That's how people get destroyed. But I am going to challenge you on one thing. Have you actually done the math, or did you assume you can't afford it and stop there? Because most people who say, I can't afford to buy, have never actually run the numbers. They see a $500,000 house and think, I need a $100,000 down payment. You don't. FHA loans require 3.5% down on a $300,000 house that's $10,500. Some conventional loans allow 5% down. That's $15,000. There are down payment assistance programs in most states, grants that don't need to be repaid. There are first-time buyer programs with reduced rates and lower closing costs. The path to ownership is narrower than it used to be, but it's not closed. The question isn't, can I afford my dream home? The question is, can I afford to start building equity instead of paying rent? Those are very different questions. And the second one, the answer might be yes. Here's what I want you to understand. Your first home doesn't need to be your forever home. It doesn't need to be in the perfect neighborhood. It doesn't need to have the granite countertops and the big backyard. It needs to do one thing, convert your housing payment from an expense into an asset. That's it. Buy a small condo, buy a townhouse, buy in a less trendy neighborhood. Buy something that gets you off the rent treadmill. Because once you're building equity, everything changes. In 5 years, you can sell and use that equity to buy something bigger. In 10 years, you can refinance and pull cash out to invest. In 15 years, you can own rental property and have someone else pay your mortgage. The first purchase isn't the destination. It's the on-ramp. But if you never get on the ramp, you never reach the destination. And every year you wait, the ramp gets steeper. Let me give you a framework that changes how you see this decision. I call it the ownership threshold. Most people ask, should I rent or buy? Wrong question. The right question is, At what point does buying cost me less than renting over the time I plan to stay? This is your ownership threshold, and it's almost always shorter than people think. If you plan to stay somewhere for 7 years or more, buying almost always wins. 5 years usually wins, depending on the market. 3 years, it's close, run the numbers. Less than 3 years, rent probably makes sense. Isn't about rates, it's not about prices, it's about time. How long will you stay? If the answer is probably a while, then waiting is costing you money every single month. So here's what I want you to do. This weekend, I want you to sit down and run 2 calculations. Calculation 1, the waiting tax. Add up how much rent you've paid in the last 5 years, or however long you've been renting, write that number down. Now write down how much equity you've gained from those payments. If you're like most people, the first number is 6 figures. The second number is 0. That's the waiting tax you've already paid. Calculation 2, the ownership threshold. Find a mortgage calculator online, plug in a realistic home price for your area, a realistic down payment you could save in the next 1 to 2 years, current rates, calculate the monthly payment, compare it to your rent, then ask yourself, if I paid this amount for 7 years, what would I own at the end? If the answer is significant equity, and it almost always is, then you've found your threshold. You're not waiting for the right time, you're already past it. Now let me leave you with this. The financial media wants you uncertain. Uncertainty drives clicks. Landlords want you waiting. Waiting drives rent checks. The system wants you patient. Patience keeps you paying. But patience isn't a financial strategy. It's an emotion disguised. And emotions don't build wealth. Ownership does. The people who win at money aren't the ones who time everything perfectly. They're the ones who start early and stay consistent. Buy a house at the wrong time, you'll probably be fine in 10 years. Wait forever for the right time, you'll definitely be behind. The waiting tax is real, and it's compounding against you every single month. You can keep paying it, or you can decide that this year, this month, you stop waiting and start owning. The math doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares about what you own. Now you know the cost of waiting. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If this changed how you see renting, share it with someone who keeps saying, I'll buy eventually. Eventually is expensive. The math proves it. Drop a comment below. Tell me, how many years have you been renting and what's been stopping you from buying? I read every single one, and I'll answer as many as I can. And if you want to see how this same waiting tax shows up in other decisions, cars, subscriptions, even zero interest financing, we break all of it down on this channel. Because once you see the invisible math, you can't unsee it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.